Welcome to Turtle Talk. This is Morgan's story and the family's journey. I'm Craig, and
Hi, Michelle. Welcome.
okay,
You know, so we've talked about our time at the ICU, and we've talked about our time at the rehab center, but what we haven't really addressed was the elephant in the room was the legal piece of it. So we're going to back up and kind of start from that night of the accident when the officers came and we gave identification of Morgan. And they had put her on, she was on the helicopter going to one hospital that we requested. And somehow, some way, her flight got diverted to a different hospital, both of them trauma hospitals, but our preference was the one over the other. So that piece kind of gets answered in a little while, but we race down there. We get there, and mind you now, there's like the three families there. Everybody's trying to figure everything out. And at the time, it was just the driver's family and our family. I wasn't even realizing that the third person was there. Um, so then we're all sitting there, and all of a sudden we're trying to piece together what happened. What happened that night? What did the kids do? And, they had gone and had dinner. They had gone to the races. Somebody had called and said, hey, come on out to this house party. And they had replied that they'd get there eventually, but they were doing other things at the time. So at the time, we didn't know this except through the driver's family. That's kind of what had happened. So then fast forward a little bit, and we're all in ICU, and then the driver's family is saying that Morgan was driving. Then they were saying that somebody else was driving, and I think they knew at that time that this was going to be a really horrific situation, and there's liability now, right? It didn't help that the highway patrolman had also indicated that, well, we don't know for sure who was driving. Maybe this one was, maybe that one was. So now you have doctors who are believing that different people are driving, and we have all these different doctors dealing with all these kids, what's going on. So we're still in this first night in a huge state of confusion as to what exactly happened, right? We knew it was bad. We knew that there was blame going on. We're in our ICU room, and the actual driver's family came in and started hounding us about what was going on. What did we know? Maybe he wasn't driving, she was driving. And so there's so much uncertainty as to what exactly even happened. And then we're dealing with, let's try and get the blame off from ourselves,
right.
with the driver's family. So we just decided, at that point that all we could do was save our own child, and we just needed to pray and not trust anyone. So then the next day, we have highway patrol coming in wanting to talk to us. I have a friend who comes and says, hey, you should know there's this big meeting with everyone involved, and to make sure our stories are correct. Well, in my mind, I think of that as, let's make sure all our stories are the same.
Right.
Right? That's what my mind is thinking. Like, why do you have a big meeting involving everyone who is involved unless you're trying to get your story straight? So here, doubt is already starting to creep in about who's protecting who, right? So we're going through this. We decide this is some pretty serious stuff. So we call my husband's cousin, who's an attorney, and say, we need you to represent us. We don't know what to do. And this looks on the surface to be awful. So she gave us some advice and said she would handle things until she could find us good representation, someone trustworthy that would be out to protect Morgan. So she said, don't talk to anyone. Don't, just keep details to yourself. So we're talking only to our family. And now we're, through that first night and we're into the second day. And the question becomes, where the heck did the crash even happen? So we get on our GPS locator services and everything stopped. Like before they even got to the party, GPS location services stopped working. Like, what happened? How did they get this close to the party and GPS stopped? So then, of course, we're questioning, was there a jammer out there or something to stop cell phones from communicating, calling? I don't know, because mind you, the police are out there raiding this high school party at an abandoned farm place. So I don't know. I don't know. We can only speculate, right?
Right.
And so we're all asking questions, and our family, brother and sister-in-laws, brothers, sisters, everybody's questioning whoever they can find to see if we can get more detail, because nobody is being forthcoming about anything at this point. And the highway patrol is hounding us, saying, we need to talk to you. We have a victim advocate for you. Well, let me explain something. Victim advocates that are coming from the place, like whether it be the hospital, whether it be the police, wherever they're coming from, their first priority is always the place that they work for. So the police victim advocate is really not an advocate for our daughter. That person's an advocate for the highway patrol. That person's an advocate for the hospital. Even though they claim to be an advocate for us, their first loyalty always is to their employer.
It's who pays them.
Which gives you a huge conflict of interest, right?
Yep.
Because the answers we want, nobody's going to give us. So some of our family decided it was time to go on a treasure hunt and see if they could figure out anything. So they come back to the local town, because gossip travels fast, right? And they're finding out where they're getting sent to all these different locations. We're looking for any personal items of Morgan's. You don't know. You don't know what's left out there.
Right.
Maybe it's just a shoe. Maybe it's a ring. Who knows, right? But they wanted to find it. Others went in search of, what did the vehicle look like? Where's the vehicle that they were in? So luckily we had family that was able to go get pictures of the vehicle. And it was pretty horrific, as people could see in our video.
So,
And some of the other family went to like 3 or 4 different locations before they actually got accuracy on where the crash happened. Because what we didn't know until a little bit later was my brother-in-law called the sheriff's office and said, where did the crash happen? We would like the exact location. And they refused to give it. Right.
why?
Why? Exactly. Why? We were directed by one officer that it was 15 miles away from where it actually was. So they're out walking through a field that had nothing to do with the accident, because that's the information they were given. Then they finally figured it out through word of mouth and stopping at the local coffee house and finding out where exactly it did happen. And they were able to go there and see what was left and take some pictures for us, and because we're in the hospital, we're not leaving.
Right.
But these are things, no matter how much it hurts, you want to know. So we're only 24 hours, maybe 36 hours into this, and the deception and lies are already started by the people who are there to protect and serve. Right?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder. So then the highway patrol is hounding us, and we're like, listen, if you want to talk to us or our daughter or any of our family, here's our attorney. And we gave them her name and number. And this one highway patrolman, he just kept going on. Well, you need a victim advocate and you have to answer our questions and you have to. And we're like, we have an attorney. We're not saying another word. We have an attorney. We're not saying another word. This guy was so rude about the whole thing. We're in the middle of, is she going to live or die?
Right.
And he's like, well, you have to talk to us. You have to take the victim advocate. No, we don't have to do anything. You have to talk to the attorney. We have told you 6 times already. We have an attorney. Don't talk to us. Refuse to listen. Refuse. So now your mind goes to crazy places, right? Like, what are they hiding? Why are they so adamant about talking to us? You know, what is going on? So my husband's cousin got to the hospital, I don't know, day 3, maybe. I don't know. Time is very irrelevant and a big old blur.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. And she got there. Well, then her and one of my family members went and met with this victim advocate and the highway patrolman. And so they were asking questions of them, of the highway patrolman and advocate. And every answer they were given was so vague that they're like, why are we even meeting? You're not giving us anything, but you're hounding us for what we know. What did we know and when? That was the big question. What did we know? When did we know it? And who told us it? It's like, yeah. So our, the cousin, she just straight up told them, leave us alone. Don't even come back. Don't make any contact. You have to work through her. And then, so then they left us alone a little bit. But mind you, now the families are, finally figuring it out that the one person was driving, and that family had been accusing our daughter of driving. So you can see now where this family spat started, and why then they felt compelled to get the cops involved and get us kicked out of the hospital, so it was pretty ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing was absolutely ridiculous. People would come and say, hey, we got pictures. Hey, this is what we're hearing. We've got the newspaper putting out false information. We've got, 100 unanswered questions, right? How did we get here? So we finally get representation from a firm that could handle this type of case. And I tell you what, they started digging in and started requesting information. And then our eyes really, really got open as to what was going on. When you start asking for things like, hey, we want all the dash cam video, or hey, we'd like all the vest video recording.
Yeah.
And the answers are, well, we don't have any. Or the machine wasn't working. Or it hadn't been installed in the car yet. Now you're going,
this is going to be frustrating.
It was very frustrating. As they start peeling back the layers of the onion, you realize that, wow, this is going to be ugly. This is really going to be ugly. So we get this firm and they start requesting information. They start sending out letters saying, preserve all evidence, do this, do that. And that's when the harassment started, with some of the police officers driving by our house multiple times a day, parking on the corner, watching us, following my kids as they're driving to school. It's very unnerving because we still do not know who we can trust. And all my children know at this point is there was a police officer that chased our sister and made her crash and almost killed her. They're not going to trust any officer because officers are meant to protect,
Right.
to serve and protect. So then, of course, the question was, were the kids doing drugs? Were they drinking? What were they reckless driving? What was going on? And none of that was true. Yet the whole county had already sentenced them to, well, they were drinking and they deserved it and they did this and they did that and blah, blah, blah. Right? So now we have to endure public scrutiny as well as the police trying to get information. We have the lawyers. It was just, we really felt like we were in quicksand and we couldn't get a rope to get out. And if we thought we grabbed the rope with the right answer, it wasn't the right answer. Like I really felt like, Tom and I both felt like it was all smoke and mirrors through the whole thing. To this day, I still feel like it was all a smoke and mirror show by the police officers. I really question their integrity. I question, what did they have to gain or lose by just telling the truth?
Right.
But as we know, the truth always comes out. The truth will always prevail, right? It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, but it's going to come out, right? So, we're fighting through this, all this beginning stuff. We've got all the finger pointing with with the driver and his family. So now we've decided that we know he was driving. We know that the other passenger in Morgan had nothing to do with this. We know there was no drugs. We know there was no alcohol. There was no reckless driving. And the only person that remembered everything was the other passenger. So my money's going to be on what he tells us. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And what he was painting was a pretty grim story that they had stopped. They had come down the road, used their blinker. They were not speeding. They were driving down the road. The highway patrol whipped around, turned on their lights. So the kids stopped. The three of them stopped. And then there was this tribal officer and a rookie cop who decided to harass the kids. They pulled a gun on the kids. And that's when the driver took off. And he said it was the scariest thing that they had to live through, that Morgan was crying and they were begging him to stop. There was no point at which they could have got out. And I am just sobbing hysterically as I'm listening to this, thinking the fear that those two must have felt.
Right.
The big question was, at what point did they know who the driver was? And that question was not answered for quite a while. Like, why would you chase someone who had an ankle monitor on, who they had the plate number, they had the truck, they knew the driver, they knew the ID. However, though, the police were saying, well, we didn't know who it was. We didn't know who it was. Well, later on, we get the dispatch logs, which say within the first couple minutes, they knew exactly who he was. So please tell me why this chase even happened.
And why did they act like they didn't know?
I don't know. Full disclosure, though, the driver had been in trouble previously in his life.
Ankle monitor.
And had been to jail. He had an ankle monitor. I don't know what his whole story was. It's not my business. It's not my story to tell, but he had an ankle monitor. They knew who he was. And at any point, they could have gone and got him later. So in our minds, when we're figuring this out in the hospital, we're like, please, what was the point of the chase?
Right.
If they knew who he was and they knew he had an ankle monitor, why? Why did they chase? Because look at the end result. They had committed no crimes. They had committed no traffic violations. There was no drugs, no alcohol, nothing. There was nothing except a gun being pulled on these kids. And we found, the other passenger told us this. He's like, they pulled the gun on us. They pointed it at our head. And when I say they, it was one officer. One. So he, the one officer, pulled a gun on them, pointed it at their head. And that's when the driver took off to protect the other two. But that's not the narrative that was getting smeared everywhere.
Right.
So then, of course, you have all these people who are, well, we're going to back the blue irregardless. And in my mind as a mom, I'm like, how did this even happen? Like, you're supposed to protect my children.
Right.
We tell our children, we all raise our children. You raise your children that if you ever need help, you go to an officer.
Yep.
So now how do I tell my children it's still okay to go to a police officer when the police officer did this to their sister?
It's a hard question to answer.
We even at one point went down to the cafeteria at the hospital, and we were just getting the kids some food, and we were sitting there, and next to us was a table of police officers. So my husband got up, went back into the cafeteria, got 6 cookies, came back out, and he said, kids, I want you to come with me. And he walked over to their table, and he gave them all these cookies and said, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for being a police officer. And, the kids said thank you, and then they walked back to the table, and my husband explained what had happened. And that by doing this simple gesture, he was trying to show our children that not all police officers are bad. Which that, in a way, kind of, some of the officers that we gave the cookies to were the officers that came and had to throw us out of the hospital. Kind of hard to keep trying to tell our children that not all police officers are bad when all these things keep happening, But I was very proud of my husband for making that gesture with our children, and they know that not all officers are bad. There's so many good ones out there, and we really commend them. We have friends, family who are all, in some sort of police work, and they're great people. And in the beginning, though, even in my own mind, like I lumped them all into one dish.
Right.
And it wasn't until we were at the rehab center and I was sitting with one lady and we were praying and stuff, and I was telling her about my frustration with police officers, and she said, I just want you to know that not all officers are bad, and my husband is a police officer. And it was in that moment of reality there where it was like, wow, I hadn't realized I was doing that. And that I'd met her husband, and he was such a kind person. And I thought, wow, I need to back myself up here, and I really thank her. I thank that lady for telling me that my husband's an officer, because it was in that moment that I got another piece of clarity that you don't realize sometimes what you're doing until it happened, So as time keeps going on and the lawyers are requesting more information, we get the dispatch log.
What an eye opener.
Yeah. Because it gives line by line. It has all the conversation,
So 1:19 in the morning.
1:19 in the morning,
Pursuit started.
the pursuit started. Yeah. The pursuit went on. What we knew is it started about a little after 1 at that point, and we were told that it had gone on for 20 minutes. We were told it had gone on for 30 minutes. We were told it had gone on for 5 minutes. Like, all the narratives that were coming back to us were all different. All of them. But then we get the dispatch log. It started at 1:19 and ended at like 1:51.
Approximately.
Yeah, approximately. And it was like, oh my God. What was so serious? I just remember looking at that and I just started crying, saying, what the heck did they do that was so serious, that warranted a chase for that long? And most of the chase was in ridiculous speeds, over 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour down a 2-lane, a 2-track dirt track road, like a field road. And all I kept thinking was, who was the voice of reason in all of this? What the hell were these cops thinking, that they're going to do this chase down a field road at 100 miles an hour? My mind still to this day cannot wrap my brain around this. Like, what did they do that was so criminal that a gun got pulled on them, and it ended up in almost a 30-minute high-speed chase across gravel roads, highways, through fields, and a full-speed chase down a dead-end road where they crashed? Like, what warranted this? Who was the voice of reason? These are the people that are supposed to serve and protect, not harm and kill. And I just, that for us was the hardest piece to swallow, as we're looking at this and realizing how far and how fast this chase went for nothing. There was no traffic violation. There was no alcohol. There was no drugs. They didn't rob a bank. They didn't kidnap anybody. They didn't kill anybody. So please tell me, what the hell warranted this officer pulling a gun and then chasing them for that amount of time? It was probably somewhere in the 5 to 10 minute, like I said. All these times are a little approximate because memory fades. The details are etched in my brain forever, but the exact times. But the chase was terminated by the highway patrol.
After about 8 minutes.
After about 8 minutes. But the next aggressor was a tribal officer many miles off the reservation. Shouldn't have even been there to begin with, in my opinion, right? And he's chasing them aggressively and said something to the effect that they had run him over with the pickup that they were driving. Well, I don't know, but in my opinion, you get hit by a pickup. Well, first off, I'm not running anywhere, and secondly, I'm not going to be involved in a high-speed chase. So my mind is questioning that to begin with.
Right.
But then aggressively chasing these kids, Highway Patrol called it off. Why did he re-engage?
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is what, almost a 30-minute chase, and after 8 to 10 minutes, it's called off by a higher up agency. But yet this lower agency comes in and says, Screw it, we're going to keep chasing for 20 more minutes, run them down a dead-end road. Some days I wish I could be inside the mind of these people to see what their logic was on this. But then most of the time I'm very thankful I'm not there, because I just can't fathom how this could be. How could someone of sound mind and body make decisions like this that caused the outcome that this did? I don't have the answers, and I don't think we'll ever have the answers for that.
As to why.
As to why. Did we have like a Napoleon syndrome going on here? Did we, do we always have to be the biggest, best, the baddest?
Sure.
I wish I knew. But we do get some answers later on as things progress. We get a lot of answers about a lot of different things. But in the moment, at this time, we had no idea.
You had to wait years for answers.
We had to wait years for answers. We had to wait through depositions, and we had to wait through, discovery and depositions, and finally the trial, and the things we heard and saw and read just really make you question your faith in humanity of some of these people. So, yeah, tough situation to be in. But at the time, this is what we know. High-speed chase. Our kids crashed at the end.
Right.
Eventually, we get to see the one dash cam video. And that was gut-wrenching. That was gut-wrenching to watch.
Was it from the first pursuer or from the...
I honestly don't know. When you do discovery and you're requesting all these things, and, the dispatch logs, and you're requesting any and all dash cam video and any and all voice recordings and stuff, it's overwhelming. So stuff is coming in from all these different areas, and you see it, and then it just, lines become blurred, because you're like, well, I know I saw this, I just don't know where it came from. That that first night, the kids went to the local hospital first, and the other passenger's mom, actually, they knew who he was right away. And so she got to the hospital, and even there they were harassing the one that's conscious, harassing that one about, well, what happened? What did you see? What did you hear? And it's like, I really feel like, the cover your butt situation started immediately.
Right.
The comment was made to us by a friend who had overheard, and, granted, this is hearsay, but the person that told us, I trust, is that they had hoped that all three would die because
It'd be quieter for them.
It would be quieter for them. Thank you guys for watching. We really appreciate it. We love hearing from you guys, so keep the comments and the questions coming for us.
Yes. Love the questions. Please subscribe. Go to www.givemorgan.org or visit me at my real estate website, realtorcraigbertrand.com. And we always want your questions, comments, like, and share wherever you listen or watch.
Thank you.
Thank you.